Ed? Okay, I'll get to Charlie. Go ahead, Charlie. Go ahead.
What is the possibility that Casella is going to have to require subsidies to make this whole mess work? Is that a possibility? Or will you go out on your own?
We have yet to determine how the project is going to be financed. It hasn't been done yet.
Okay. Second question. It's pretty obvious that the university isn't going to need an awful lot of heat. You have the 3 months of summer we have. We're lucky in Maine, we have 9 months of winter. But the 3 months of summer that we have, they're not going to require any heat. How's that going to affect the piping of the gas, or just going to stay stagnant and build that pressure until they start using it again?
No, if the university is not using the gas, it's going to be flared off at the landfill or used at the landfill in some other way, as it currently is.
And how is it used at the landfill right now?
It's being flared.
It's being what?
It's being flared.
It's being burned. Okay.
But could we do something else at the landfill with the gas the university is not using, such as an engine plant at the landfill? Sure, we could do that too.
Okay. Third question, and I'm out of here. Third question, isn't this basically going to force an expansion of the dump, because you're going to need to increase the size and volume of the waste stream at that dump to meet the needs of the University of Maine as they go on in the future and be a part of phase 2? Isn't this one way, in my mind, that it's just a way of saying this is how we're going to get our public benefit determination for the next time we put our application in? That was just a thought I had.
I had the same thought.
But that's your opinion.
No, it was a thought.
Oh, okay.
The question
And I'm not the only one that shares that thought.
we might answer that question by the volumes of gas being provided over, this might be for you, so either one of you, being provided over the 20-year life of this contract. Is it based on the existing landfill?
Well,
That's a question. I think that's it.
I guess let me try to repeat again. Maybe I didn't explain this.
Existing to the point of
clear
what's been
enough.
approved to this date.
Regardless of the expansion of the existing permit, let me see if I can say this another way. The agreement doesn't place any specific delivery obligation on Casella for an amount of gas other than what the landfill generates. So we don't have a particular target that we have to meet. So whatever the landfill does, we're going to collect it and we're going to send it down the pipeline. In turn, the university doesn't have a particular obligation either. So there's not a bogey, if you will, that we need to hit.
So you don't care if you make money?
Oh, we do care if we make money. Yeah,
Because
sure.
if you don't have some kind of a guarantee,
Oh, sure.
I should think it'd be like buying an old car and saying, I can get another 100,000 miles on this car, even if it can't get inspected.
Would we like to generate and sell more rather than less? Absolutely.
That's my point.
Absolutely. And is phase 2 a larger project than phase 1? It certainly is, because it's going to be fulfilling both the thermal needs, which phase 1 does, and the electricity needs. And you can characterize that however you want, but is the landfill providing a benefit to the university in terms of saving them on cost of heating the campus and how you calculate what their carbon footprint is? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I would think certainly that in determining a public benefit for any future expansion, that this would be part of that equation. But you're saying that it's not coupled in any way to an expansion of the landfill.
Yeah, I guess the way I would characterize it is we're not we're not building or expanding the landfill in order to provide gas to the University of Maine. We're able to provide gas to the University of Maine because we have a landfill. You know, you can't really, you know, switch one around the other, because in the scheme of things, the landfill gas project is a relatively small component of the overall landfill project. The university pipeline project is not driving what is going on with the landfill, because it's just, you know, it's just not.
I would assume that what would be driving how long we would need to furnish gas in this pipeline at the university would be the pro formas you set up to amortize the cost of reimbursing the University of Maine $500,000 and doing the pipeline. And
Well,
that is a minimum. You got to amortize that. So there's a certain amount of time and sale. So I would say that would be more the driving factor than anything else. And I assume you've taken into consideration how much gas you're going to produce and what you are permitted for. You're probably, if you're prudent, staying within those limits.
Ed, you had a question?
Yeah, that's a pretty ambitious permit schedule. You said that would be by December 21st of this year. So are these permits, have they been applied for already?
They have not.
Okay. What happens if they're in the contract, if that part of the contract isn't fulfilled? Does the deal get torn up?
It could be,
On
yes.
December 22nd, so they would have an out, the university would have an out at that point, or you would?
As
If it's through
I
that token.
as I understand it, either party would have the option, you know, to terminate the agreement. It doesn't mean that they will, but it provides a milestone that if it's not reached,
Question two, a couple of years ago, there was a grant application, came out of Old Town. I don't think the city of Old Town wrote it, but it was going to DOE for trying to get some stimulus funds to build a pipeline. That was rejected. Is there anything like that in the works right now involving the federal government or the state government?
we don't have any application for a grant.
All right, thanks.
Mr. Foster?
Tim Foster, full-time resident. I guess I got a couple of questions, kind of right away from all the politics. Just being a landowner along one of the proposed routes. Past precedent, safety-wise, or what have we got? Is there more of these out there that? I know Bangor Gas is running, but every day I see them out there with these devices, checking their lines, making sure that they're safe, and actually not doing conversions on some properties that we have. And I know that they're very meticulous about parts per million and that sort of stuff. What's going to be a safeguard for us, for those of us that are along the route, to give us some comfort so we want to sleep at night and not have a big type of thing? Is there other places like this that have, like, I know there's one in Bangor or Hamden, but, with a pipeline, and what experience do you folks have with that type of safety, to give us a peace of mind so we can sleep?
We don't have any experience to date in operating a pipeline, and whether we are even the owner and operator of the pipeline is another thing that is yet to be determined. So still something we're looking at. Safety of the pipeline is going to be part of the application process. One of the applications that will be submitted is to the Public Utilities Commission, and one of the topics they will take a very close look at is conformity of the pipeline design, construction, and operation with national pipeline safety standards. So, they're going to look at what is submitted and what the standards are, and does it meet the standards or not. And certainly that will be, one of the permits that will be available for the public to review and get involved in and comment on as all the others.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly right now, basically what we've got going is you folks in the university have talked, we've come to an agreement, but there's really no way for you to get there as of yet.
Yeah, what we've come to an agreement on is the university's willing to buy the gas and what the price is, and our willingness to sell the gas, and for us to basically be exclusive buyers and sellers. So in a way, it's a purchase and sale agreement, but I guess I'd kind of say, even though it took us quite a while, that's probably the easy part. Now, actually designing and permitting and constructing, getting from point A to point B, that's a big job.
Okay, so with that being said, and I'll end with this one thing, thank you for letting me take the time. Is there, I know it's going across the mountain land, they just talked about, I don't know about any of the Indian Nation land, if there's any islands or anything, in Old Town land in Costa Orono. Is there any benefit for any of those folks at all in between this? Are we gonna get a little bit back, not out of curiosity, as taxpayers, are we gonna see any benefit at all from this? At all?
Well, we have negotiated an agreement for a benefit package with the city of Old Town as part of this project.
Is that in that agreement too, that we're gonna see?
It is not. That's something that was
Oh, is that?
taken up by
Dawn, was that, thank you, Dawn, that was in the original agreement, the last agreement signed with Casella, wasn't it?
It was just done and it's on the website.
It is. okay.
Yep, it is.
That was an action that was taken
That
up
was the
by the
one that
Old
was
Town City
adopted
Council.
last year?
Yeah,
Just
this
recently,
summer.
Last summer, yeah, okay. That's, okay. They say it's on the website, so you might want to see them. There is an agreement, the city is going to be compensated, because part of the agreement was that any revenues derived from the landfill, the city would participate in those revenues. So there is I don't know what facts they have, so you need to look at the agreement. I don't know the numbers.
So nothing additional for this?
Yes.
It's just the original landfill agreement?
No, this is additional, because this is a new byproduct of the landfill. And I sat in on those meetings last spring. I can't recall all the details of it, but it was a well-written agreement that the city will receive revenues if this project goes forward,
And from
based on the
green-
use.
From the green credits too, that'll be derived
Yeah.
from it, right?
Right.
The green credits.
We also negotiated a benefit to the town of Warren too for the sludge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in that agreement.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Ms. Dolan?
Mary Dolan, Easy Street. Actually, I did have a question about the that agreement with the city of Old Town. And I went back and I was looking at it, and so the things that Casella will give to the city of Old Town, Casella shall pay to the city 5% of the revenues from the sale of the gas. But then there's a clause in here that I wanted clarification about. It says, any fixed price component of the LFG to be paid to Casella by Maine or any user shall be deducted from the revenues. So does that mean that if you sell it to the university, Old Town doesn't get that 5% of it, or what does it mean?
No, let me see if I can explain this, and it's going to be a little difficult to explain, but I think I can probably do it. The price that the university is going to pay for the gas, and it's per
MMBTU.
For MMBTU. It has two pieces to it. They will pay a fixed $2 in MMBTU For every MMBTU we deliver, $2. And that $2 is really directed at defraying the cost to transport it from the landfill to the university. The second part of the price is a variable price component, and it's going to fluctuate with the price of natural gas. So as the price of natural gas goes up and down, that variable price will go up and down, but the university is always going to be getting a discount off of what the price of natural gas is. And the reason it's set up like that is that that's essentially, if I'm correct, the structure under which the university currently pays for natural gas. Natural gas has a transportation component to it to get it there, and then a variable component for the cost of the commodity. And because that fixed price is going toward paying for the delivery, essentially paying back the pipeline cost, if we shared that with the city, we wouldn't be able to pay off the pipeline. It's dedicated to that purpose. So the 5% is on the variable component of the price.
I was just going to say, I mean, it seems to me that in a lot of the discussion that we've had here tonight about like where the route is, how the university is calculating the benefits, I guess I just don't quite understand how that would violate any sort of confidentiality and negotiations, and I think it really would be helpful for, if we had something like this December 1st, I guess I don't see anything that,
because we...
So anyway, I mean,
okay.
that's just a general comment about, maybe for future reference.
Sure.
Lady in the back.
Hi.
Name?
Vanessa Sherlin. I've spoken to you on the phone before.
Yes.
Matter of fact, I spoke to you about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I asked you about the route, and you said you had no idea. But anyway,
I don't think I said that.
I tried to pin you down on it, and you were very clear to me on the phone.
No, I said I did not know whether the agreement with the university was a public document.
You didn't say.
No, sir.
Yes,
But
I did.
anyway, that's beside my question. I tried to pin you down on the route because it concerns me because I'm a landowner, but my question to you is...
Did I not refer to the map in the document, but I was not sure the document was a public document?
We didn't talk about that, no.
Yes, we did.
Just don't ask.
No, my question...
I'm finished talking.
That's enough.
Okay, never mind then.
Yeah, I think we better. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask the question of someone else then, because this has nothing to do with him?
Okay. go
I
ahead.
want to know, as a landowner, am I going to sit back and just wait for a letter to come in the mail? They're going to say, okay, we're taking your property to put this pipeline in. I just want to know. And then I get the letter, and then I say, okay, you take my property, put your pipeline in, and that's the end of it. I just want to know what's going to happen. Is that what's going to happen when they make the
I can't answer
determination
that,
of
but
what route it is?
No, I can't answer that, but I don't think it's going to be as blunt as that. Once they determine a route, they'll be negotiating with people. If they're going to stay in the right-of-ways, then it's going to be with the city and permits in the permitting process.
If they have to cross property, though.
If they have to
do.
cross property, it's going to be their discretion, and they're going to, the Casella is going to have to negotiate with the landowner to get across the property. So,
If it's in the right-of-way of the interstate, does that mean it just follows down the side of the interstate, and that doesn't, they don't cut down additional trees or disturb the... I'm just wondering how it's going to
there are
affect
trees
us.
within the right-of-way, so I wouldn't know how to address the tree situation, but I don't know exactly what's happening there, so.
That's a federal road, right?
Yeah,
So we gotta get the federal government.
that's right. But you missed, Ron, you're a little late. You missed all the thing, a big part of this conversation. Big part of this conversation is the permitting process. Ron, you want an answer? Or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The big part of this process is the permitting process. And they've got a year, and they're just starting to initiate the permits. So they are going to the state, depends on whatever it might be. Yeah, Charlie.
I'm kind of interested, George McDonald's here. I'd like to know what involvement that the state planning office may or may not have had, and if not, why, where it concerns the dump and where the state planning office is supposedly the owner of the dump and Casella the operator, if they had any input, and if so, how much, and if not, why not?
Okay, Mr. McDonald.
That was gonna be my, who was the representative from the state of Maine that represented the planning board in these negotiations? Was my
The state
George
planning
McDonald
office.
with the State Planning Office. With the operating services agreement that was negotiated with Casella Waste Systems, the ownership of the landfill gas generated at the landfill is the property of Casella. We have been kept involved in the early stages of negotiations on the agreement, but not in the final stages. They kept us aware of what's going on, and we expect a conclusion, and Don's kept me posted. So,
Okay, could I have a follow-up question, please? If folks are going to have a problem, does the state planning office offer any help to help intervene for these people so that they don't have to get emotional and charged up like I've been for the last 8 years, and actually get answers to their questions and help in their endeavors?
to the extent possible, yes.
Okay, well, good luck, because they've never helped me. Thank you, George.
There's no need for this sarcasm. I'm getting tired of it too. There's no need. Any other sensible question? Okay. You have something to say, Mr. Schroeder?
Is Mr. Mahar still answering questions, or is he finished?
Not if I'm going to be called a liar and an ass in a public meeting.
No, I think he doesn't need to face any abuse. You have
Okay, I have a
sensible question.
I have a question for the committee then on this topic. On October, my name's Paul Schrader again. I live in Orono. On October 5th, I made wanting to get some details about gas permitting and gas management and gas regulation. I made several calls around the state. One person I talked to works for the Air Bureau, who is generally in charge of licensing these kinds of projects. And I asked about, a variety of questions about management of the content of the gas, and as well as any possible problems with the gas. It was his impression that he said in his experience there's never been an occasion when there wasn't venting at this place of use of this gas. In other words, he implied that at certain points in the operation of the university's gas plant, there would be direct venting into the atmosphere unburned of this gas. He said there are certain problems with this gas, which include sulfur compounds, TRS, for which he said, quote unquote, the numbers can be all over the place, and the best approach would be to try for as much consistency as possible in what goes into the landfill. This was in a discussion about how much organic material might be required in the landfill, the future of the landfill, to, for gas supply. There was also a statement that was, I made the statement that my impression was that the gas was going to be cleaned before it would go to the landfill. Before it would go to the steam plant. And he said that his understanding, although he didn't have full understanding, was that the opposite was true, that they're planning to transmit the gas to the university untreated, basically just for burning off the way it would be untreated, burned off at the landfill. I guess my concern is number one, is there going to be any cleaning or treating? And number two is, what do we actually know about the venting of this gas under certain conditions? How will that affect the environment? I am an Orono resident, and this facility is in Orono, so I'm concerned about the effects on Orono of untreated landfill gas venting from the steam plant.
My recollection that it's been mentioned that it's going to be cleaned at the source. So if you want to give us the name of the person you spoke to, we'll
is
invite
this
him
going
to
to be
come
cleaned
us.
at the source?
at the
Yes.
landfill.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, in the document, there's a gas quality specification that's been negotiated,
Okay.
and that's all that's the responsibility of the seller of the gas to the University of Maine.
I'd be more than willing to invite this individual, if you have a name, to come to one of our meetings and explain his position.
I think you need to have this, in other words, how they're going to do it first. In other words, there's no sense talking a lot about ifs, ands, and whats until you actually have a plan, on the table of what they're going to do. Then you can talk a little bit more about what kind of, hazardous things are going to happen, where, and all of that. If you get into, a lot of speculation, I think it's either going to be cleaned at the site, or it's going to be cleaned at the landfill. And once it gets at the landfill and it comes through to us, in other words, we're going to have a lot of questions about, in other words, the process and all of that. In other words, what are they going to do? And that probably will go through the planning board stage, and we will be looking very seriously at how it's done, what's there, what kind of things are going to happen, and what kind of hazards will be things. So I think those issues will be addressed through us.
I think it's fair to say that at this point, both the Casella, the university, and the state planning office have indicated that while agreements have been reached between the parties, that this is still very much in the concept stage. Is that a fair statement? Anyone who cares to?
And if they actually want to clear it at the university, I assume that the Orono Planning Board and the Orono Council would take a serious look at, in other words, what kind of an operation that is at that point. And then Mr. Schroeder could clearly discuss it over there.
I'd like to ask a question of Don, if I could. As a committee member, no, you don't have to stand up, Don, and I'm asking the chairman not to open him for public questions, because he's indicated he doesn't want to, and I don't blame him. But I'd like to ask this question, if you would. Is there something in the plan that you know of already to do some sort of, I'm ignorant of what the cleaning process might be, is that something you've already looked into that you could enlighten us on?
Yeah, the standards in the agreement have to do with sulfur content, moisture content, oxygen content, particulates, and pressure. And so all of those have a target specification that we have to meet. We have a sulfur scrubbing operation at our gas engine facility at Hamden. Whether we would use that same technology or another, yet to be determined. The dewatering, it's usually done with a chilling process, because when you cool the gas, the moisture condenses and falls out. The particulate is a filter to filter particulates out. Oxygen content is managed based really on the well field in the landfill, and characteristically the oxygen content is very low. And pressure is just, at what rate are we pushing it down the pipeline.
And in your studies to date, you've contemplated doing that at the site? Those things you just
that would be done at the
landfill site,
at the beginning end of the pipeline, and then so it would be the scrubbed gas and the clean gas that would be pushed down the pipeline to the steam plant.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, another question, if I might direct it exclusively to Don, would be that by sulfur scrubbing, you are referring to the hydrogen sulfide
That's
gas?
correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the committee? Okay, let's go on to the next agenda item for
Mr. Chairman, Representative DeShane's had a long day.
Yeah,
That might be.
I'm going to move him on.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Bob, Representative, that's your hand. You can address what we get down here for you is an update on the legislation dealing with solid waste.
Yep.
I understand there's one bill in particular that relates to our committee.
Yes, thank you. I'm Bob Duchesne, State Representative from District 13. Let me give you a real quick overview of, I think, some challenges that will be coming to us. First of all, in the governor's budget, the state planning office gets changed, and I don't know how yet. But my guess is that no matter what happens, you'll be stuck with George because who else wants a job?
A ringing endorsement.
Yeah, right. Also, the governor's proposed getting rid of the Board of Environmental Protection, and I'm not sure where that leaves the public opportunity to intervene and question some of the processes that go along. But so keep your eye on that. There's some general solid waste issues, like there are 8 different bills that affect the bottle bill, including one to repeal it. There's a bunch of product stewardship bills in the pipeline. We're sort of making that transition to the next phase of what do we do with solid waste in the future, and how do we get the worst part of it out before it ever goes to PERC or to the landfill. So there's probably going to be about 8 bills of that nature too. So those are there. We've taken action on the odor rules, which have now been delayed. You might recall that Elizabeth Schneider actually had a bill in a few years ago, which we hijacked and forced the department to make odor rules so that we could have a numeric number which solid waste facilities would have to meet, and if they exceed that, then they're in violation. At the same time, the department decided to take care of their methane problem too, because at certain facilities they've had methane in the groundwater affecting local wells. So they decided to do both those rulemakings together. And unfortunately, that made things more complicated and in some cases more expensive for other landfills like Lewiston and up in Fort Fairfield. So now that it's more complicated, it's been delayed. And so that has not gone into effect yet. Representative Michael Shelley from Brewer had a bill in which would simply ban out-of-state waste. He did not realize the constitutional issues involved with that when he did it, nor was that really his intention to ban all out-of-state waste coming in. He was more curious about what he had heard anecdotally about trucks coming into the state, changing cabs, and then coming directly up to Juniper Ridge, and he wanted to curb that practice if it even existed. So that bill has not gone to work session yet, and we haven't worked it. We just had a hearing on it a week ago. I have a bill in which I think is the crux of what I want to discuss tonight. You'll recall we had a discussion in one of the previous Landfill Advisory Committee meetings about what standing does this advisory committee have with proceedings of the Department of Environmental Protection and the Board of Environmental Protection. You intervened or acted on a case that was in front of the board last fall, and Casella's attorneys, Pierce Atwood, argued that you had no standing. The board disagreed and said, yes, you do. You're created the statute, therefore you have standing, and you were an aggrieved party. Nevertheless, that opened up some questions about what is exactly your standing and how can you intervene. For instance, can you do something that your own municipalities don't want you to do? Do you have that kind of independent standing? We also, at that meeting, got into finance issues. Who's exactly supposed to be paying for your operations? So I did my best to address that in a piece of legislation that should come up to a hearing sometime in the next month. And the pieces of that include a fix that in current statute, and whenever they try to locate a landfill somewhere, an advisory committee is supposed to be created. But that statute says it's only for the purpose of citing the landfill. It never said that the committee had to exist after the landfill was actually cited. And so this bill will correct that and say, if there's a landfill, then there's got to be an advisory committee, no matter where it happens to be. The second one fixes, I think, or at least addresses the crux of what was being argued by the Pierce Atwood attorneys on behalf of Casella. That is, what standing do you have? The statute gives you certain authority to request information from the landfill operator, request information from the state, to give citizens access to you to vent these things in public. And my feeling was that if you are somehow prevented from doing that, if a contract or an agreement is reached between the state and the operator and you're precluded from carrying out your duties, then by golly, you should have the right to intervene somehow. You've been precluded from doing what you were statutorily authorized to do. So you would certainly have automatic standing on that. If you have concerns on the actual merits, let's say the expansion of the landfill, would you have standing to intervene in that directly? My take on it was that you advise the communities. So you would advise Old Town, here's what we think, we heard the public, they have concerns, these are our concerns, you the municipality are the ones who should go argue this. And you would report that to all three of your constituencies, so it would be Alton, Old Town, or the Penobscots, for instance. And based on your advice, you could, any one of those entities could go intervene on the actual merits of what's being proposed in front of the Board of Environmental Protection. Furthermore, that also means that one community can't preclude another from doing it as well, based on your advice. So that was, I understood the nature of how this group is supposed to interact with its communities. I'm trying to establish that in statute so that that can no longer be argued that you don't have standing going forward. Whatever the Board of Environmental Protection eventually turns out to be, in my opinion, if you have statutory authority to go examine issues and get feedback from the public, then you have standing to go do that and argue in front of the board. Then there was the issue of financing. That's kind of funny. I looked, there's a drafting error in here. My original intent was, it says in statute right now that communities enter into an agreement with the operator that derives a certain amount of benefit revenue. And it is supposed to be in statute for things like emergency services, emergency preparation, infrastructure, scientific expertise, and that sort of thing. I would add in the statute the additional criteria of using that money to fund you. So that from henceforward going into the future, that is supposed to be the revenue stream that pays for it. I think the very last line of the bill also makes George McDonald pay for it. That's kind of cool. I won't be surprised if the state contests that when we finally get to this hearing. But at this point, it's possible that two entities are supposed to pay for you, and I look forward to that hearing. So.
Is there a number to the bill?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, 693.
Yep.
So that's that bill. This one I was going to give to Representative Jim Dill, who's the Old Town representative. He's at a board meeting tonight where he presides. And then we realized that, no, I knew this better than he did, so I better do it. But Jim does send his apologies for not being here tonight. One other one that does have a little bit of impact on Juniper Ridge, as you may know, or may not know, the Solid Waste Management Fund derives that the State Planning Office uses to fund its activities, and all the solid waste stuff from the DEP is funded out of the Solid Waste Management Fund. Two issues have arisen recently. One is that that fund was almost broke after the account was swept by the Appropriations Committee last year. The second thing is that construction demolition debris is about the only waste stream that doesn't have any fees applied to it, any tipping fees. Just about all other waste does. So I had the idea that, okay, if we're going to repair this fund, let's at least tap into a little bit of revenue from that revenue stream to prop up the Solid Waste Management Fund. And if we get enough revenue out of it, there are good things we can do with it. We can improve recycling capacity for communities. We can establish a reserve account so that the next time we need a landfill, we don't have to contract with an operator and use their money. We'll use our own money. So that bill says that we will attach a fee to construction demolition debris and see if we can't derive some revenue from that. That may be one of the more contentious ones we deal with. And that is not even out of the revisor's office yet, so I don't know when that hearing will come.
Any questions of Mr. Duchesne?
Well, just a comment. I think I certainly make the point that this advisory committee, under state statute, has been funded by the city of Old Town to date.
Yep.
Both facilities, our support, staff support, and other resources.
Yes, and I'm certainly aware of that. Going forward in the future, either with this group here, if that funding ever comes into question, I would like it somewhere in statute to say, here's where we think the money is supposed to come from, so that that question is resolved for the future. Now, in reality, it doesn't change your circumstances because that operating services agreement and the benefits package has already been negotiated, and this doesn't reopen that.
Well, the city's been accepting that responsibility all the time, accepting that responsibility. There might be once that bill gets down the line, to document what it actually costs to maintain this committee. We have the services of Charlie as the secretary, and he's doing all the paperwork through here, and there are other people involved in the hall. So we certainly could document that and basically show that it is coming out of that fund, which it is in essence. Any other questions?
No, I would just like to thank him for,
Yeah.
for putting this, 693. You listened to what went on at our meeting, it's quite obvious.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was
Go
gonna ask,
ahead.
how many different funds there are involved with the revenues, and where is there one in the DEP too, a dedicated
Yes,
fund?
for the most part, there's the Solid Waste Management Fund, which funds these activities and the oversight. And as I say, it funds about 6 positions at State Planning Office, and geez, up to 20 at DEP, I think. 20, yeah. And the revenue from that comes primarily from tires and batteries. That's the bulk of it. And then the rest is tipping fees on various waste streams. That schedule of fees is actually in statute, not just rule. And curiously, construction demolition debris is really the only one that doesn't have a fee attached. And that's turned into one of our bigger waste streams.
So there's nothing that goes through the general fund having to do with,
Nope.
Nothing at all?
No, just about all the solid waste stuff is funded through that fund.
Until they come and take money out of
Yeah.
the fund and bring it out as last year.
Yeah, they actually fixed that this year. They took it out of the groundwater fund instead, put that money back. So the emergency is passed, but for a moment there, we were broke.
It should also be said that that money it's not just from Juniper Ridge. This is collected around the state from other landfills, like batteries and tires when you buy a tire. A lot of the money comes from other sources, not just Juniper Ridge.
Ed, you want to have?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Bob for his efforts, not just on this, but kind of to date. Lifetime Achievement Award. And I also request that the committee maybe write a letter of support for this bill, certainly LD 693, and if possible, have one of your members come down when they have the hearing and present that. Sometimes having someone in an official capacity act the actual hearing really helps the group to support the bill.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have our thanks from the committee. I might ask you, the one before you today, unless there's somebody else that can address it, on the soft layer, does that go before Natural Resources?
No.
No,
That would be,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, excuse me, yeah, I've gotten confused. That was the hearing of DEP. Okay. Yeah. Charlie, you attended that meeting? Or?
Yes, the appeal by
Bob, Evan, you just, I will take my copy back.
Yeah, I didn't mark it up.
Yeah, you should have. Look for those items. Thank you.
Yep.
the appeal of the order by Casella and the state to use MSW as a soft layer. The appeal was initiated by Merck and MRC, or PERC and MRC, and the DEP reviewed it today, and they denied the appeal unanimously.
After I read the document that was sent to me, I assumed that, so I didn't think it was going to be any other result. Okay. We talked about this on several occasions, an item in here, rotating the meetings to different towns.
Excuse me, was that item 6 on the agenda? Sorry for interrupting.
Yes, that was item 6.
Should we hold our questions on that till the end?
No, you can ask questions if you wish. Charlie was in attendance, that's about all he...
Okay.
The city also took a position on that. We support the use of the MSW. In other words, for the soft layer, is that we have actually hired a contractor to review that consultant, and his recommendation is that that use is probably the best use for that. Especially, our feeling is that especially if you're looking at the base layers of the landfill, we want to make sure that we have the best quality material. In other words, there, and that seems to be the standard of use for most landfills, is to use that. They've had less problems with that. Some of the grits and the front-end processing materials they found that actually has become solidified and has created some real problems, especially in pine trees. And we don't want to have those problems. We want to make sure that we use the appeal based on a whole lot of other things which had to do with financial, in other words, competition, things like that. But our position is we want to make sure that we use the best materials that we can possibly use for that soft layer. The soft layer is a very, very critical and important portion of the landfill, and you don't want it. You want to make sure that the leachate, in other words, is very porous and will go through that. So our position was pretty much is we want to use the best materials that we can in the construction of the landfill. And that's what our position really is.
Yes, and reading, I'll finish up the others. And reading that document, the response from DEP, it bothers me that it's kind of it seems like a guessing by God. We've gone through the residue as a layer, we've used sand as a layer, we've used tire chips as a layer. Now they're coming along and saying, and I submitted the letter to DEP, which wasn't referenced to DEP's response, that we were opposed to the additional 15,000 tons, not necessarily the soft layer, but the additional, allowing of 15,000 additional tonnage just meant that, and I think that was shown in by the people appealing it, that it was an advantage for the seller of Merck in this situation to go out and try to secure additional contracts for 15,000 additional tons, which that was what we posted. I forwarded a letter from this committee to DEP back last fall, and that first hit the road. So, but there was no reference made to that. So I think in the future, I say DEP, I'm sending them locally. I think in the future, my mistake is I'm not sending them to the commissioner. So
we also looked at that. In other words, the amount of bypass that's normally sent to there is actually less than what they would use for the soft layer. They're going to have a hard time finding enough excess municipal solid waste to actually do those. But still, our position is, I don't care if they have to import it from Timbuktu. We want to make sure that it is the best material that they're going to be using for that layer. In other words, our consultant said MSW has been used really for a long time as that layer, and it's been very successful through many other landfills. And it has a tried and a true, in other words, a methodology. And some of the other things, especially like the front-end processing, it's very nice. They like to get rid of it. They like to use that as, in other words, because it's a byproduct of the thing, but it isn't the best material. It doesn't mean that they can't bring that to the landfill and dispose of it, but roughly at the same cost. But our position is it's still not the best material.
I will say this, when the document came prior to the hearing, that there was a number of clarifications in there, because it was, and I had misinterpreted it when I first saw the first document. Until I thought DEP's response it sounded like this was directed specifically for Merck to provide the soft layer. But it's explained by DEP that any other of the institutions or organizations can provide that soft layer too. So.
Well, as a matter of fact, I believe Casella, in their testimony today, said that they approached PERC, in other words, to acquire, in other words, to see if they could help supply this material, and they said they gave them a very favorable. They said it was favorable, but who knows? For that. Personally, I don't really understand the whole position of Merck or PERC and the MRC. I mean, they had, if you read through it, you could they were going off on this and off on that and whatever, and without dealing with what I consider, which is really the major issue, is what is the best material that you're going to use for this very important layer. That should be the issue. This doesn't say they have to use all of that. They can use tire chips, they can use other stuff, but it allows them to use MSW for that particular issue. This whole thing about Merck, and they have a certain limit of 300,000 tons, if you look at the results that we've had, they've never taken more than I think it's like 2,500 ton, 2,500 or 20,000 tons per year. I mean, we haven't had much bypass, which has actually come into the landfill in previous years. We aren't even approaching this 300,000 tons that are there. That 300,000 tons, which goes to there, is for if the whole plant was shut down.
That's right.
And that's the only plant that actually even has. If PERC shut down, they could take in much more than that. Or the other ones could take in much more than that. So I don't really understand the whole, I guess I don't understand the finances of all of these things and why they're there. But our position strictly is we want the best materials there for the construction of that thing that will be there for eternity.
I was pleased to hear you say that the engineer that's under contract with the city to oversee the landfill was brought into the situation.
Right.
I appreciate that. Did you have a question, Mr. Schroeder?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, thanks very much. Paul Schrader again from Orono. I actually have 3 questions for 3 different people. I attended this meeting today too, and I was actually surprised that Mr. Heinonen had asked for and got a slot there to testify because the city of Old Town really isn't party to this. And what he said now is basically more or less the gist of what he said. But I would like a clarification on one thing you said today. You said that you really didn't understand the finances behind it. I think you dismissed it. In fact, you said it's just financial smoke and we don't have a lot of problems with that. So that's your opinion. But at the end of that statement on the finances, you said, I don't understand the whole profitability of all of that or the converting of energy, but it certainly is a losing factor for these people to be using municipal solid waste in that way. So my first question is,
I said it was in their benefit. In other words, they make profit if they're taking MSW from the municipalities. The municipalities are paying to have PERC take their trash. Matter of fact, I believe it's like $70 or so we pay per ton. Whereas Casella, in other words, if you're going to put it into the landfill, charges much less for that. So just the trucking cost, in other words, they're making money at doing that. So it's profitable for them to bring MSW to the landfill here. And
okay.
That's really what I said. That's what I meant to say.
So that using it for this purpose, in your view, is profitable for the landfill operator to bring it in?
Not the landfill operator, but for the in other words, for the PERC people, for the incinerator. It's profitable for them.
I'd like to correct that, Charlie. I don't think that's accurate. I was involved in PERC.
Right.
And we didn't have enough waste coming in to produce electricity, which is the biggest source of revenue we had. And if we weren't burning the trash, we were losing considerable on the income side of selling electricity, and had to, in some cases, bring in wood chip to replace it.
Right. But what I'm saying is that it's not a losing. In other words, it may be a losing. That's why I don't understand the economics.
Yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't. I just wanted to say,
right.
I don't think they'd be trying to send solid waste.
Well, there has to be. There has to be really a whole lot more to all of this, because I look at the numbers that I'm just seeing.
Well, the Portland one's a little different.
Right.
That's a different concept.
Right. So obviously, there's more to the argument than just the straight out numbers to this. Yeah. And I think it has to do with the competition. It has to do with other things. The thought I had too is that PERC can actually import, MSW from out of state.
Merck.
But PERC can too, can't they?
PERC can.
Okay. PERC can bring it in from out of state.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the agreement originally.
Yeah, it is now, but
they think they can only do it if they don't meet in their agreement with the towns their BTU requirements.
Exactly, and it's,
that's the only way they can.
And I asked that question today, what their percentage is, and it's at 9% now out of state waste.
All the point ahead is it's a lot more complicated than meets the eye for the economics.
The few contracts that were signed out of state were only to meet an agenda that was
different periods of time
contemplated
in the
that the towns were going to increase in waste, which in fact they did. And so I was of the opinion that they had no more need for out-of-state waste.
And how that is, that funds, each community gets a portion of that back each year.
Right. But anyway, our position still is that we want to see the best materials that we can for
Yeah,
it.
well, that's a good position.
That's right.
Did you have another question?
Yes, I do. Yeah, my second question it has to do with something else you referred to, which was the approach that Casella's representative said that they had made to PERC about obtaining or about having them provide municipal solid waste. And I actually did make a tape of this, and I made a copy of what was said by the PERC representative as a response to that, and it wasn't what, and that their view of it wasn't exactly what you put forward. And I'm just going to read this out here because it caused quite a bit of concern to me. Mr. Prada from PERC had heard these several statements that were made during testimony today about the approach that Casella made, and Casella was using this as a argument that really there wasn't a competitive disadvantage for PERC in this. But anyway, here's what Peter Prada said, and I actually did listen to this, and I wrote it down. If anyone thinks I have something wrong here, please. He said, another clarification on this meeting that I supposedly said something about. Casella came to us, Wayne Boyd and Scott Heckelmeyer, I'm not sure I have that name right, about 4 weeks before the permit was issued, the first time we heard that they were going to do this. What they wanted to do was take my in-state stuff, and they would make me a sweetheart deal to bring in out-of-state stuff. We did not think that was appropriate for PERC to do that. That was my call. I made that call. We run PERC for Maine residents. Be it right or wrong, that's why we didn't do it. We didn't think that it was the appropriate thing. So I'm laying this right down here in front of this committee and in front of the public. I'd like to have some explanation from someone as to what kind of dealing Casella is into where they're doing these switches between what's in-state and what's out-of-state, because this is the kind of dealing that we've been concerned about from day one on this. Did I hear that correctly, please?
I think you're right. I think that was in other words, you're hearing two conflicting reports from people at the meeting. Who's right? Who's wrong?
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, well, I thought everyone should know exactly what PERC was approached on this one. My third question has to do with tipping fees that are paid by Merck or whoever is bringing municipal solid waste bypass from the Biddeford incinerator to the Juniper Ridge landfill. And there again, some statements were made about the fee schedule for municipal solid waste at the Juniper Ridge landfill, $48, or I forget the figure that was laid out there. But the implication was that that's the fee that's paid for the deposit of municipal solid waste. However, listening very carefully to the representative Casella, they never said that that's actually what was being paid. They just said that's the listed price for that. So I'd like to have an answer from someone.
By statute, this is actually in statute, I believe.
Right. It's a cap.
It's not just a cap, but it's a statute, in other words, that is the fee that has to be paid, I believe. It's not less than that?
This is what I'd like to get I appreciate your answer on that. I would like to fully ask my question. What is the fee, the tipping fee, that's paid at Juniper Ridge for municipal solid waste bypass that comes from the Merck facility? Who pays that fee and who receives it, and what is the actual dollars attached to that? That's my question.
I can't answer that.
Can't either, so
Thank you.
I think we need to pursue that.